This episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast is brought to you by Nomadicare. Now, personally, I love Nomadicare. I've used Nomadicare, and I recommend the company to all new travelers. What Nomadicare does is it takes the fear out of getting set up with a bad recruiter, which is the biggest fear that you have jumping into this journey. So they sit down, they interview recruiters, they vet them, get them on a list, and then provide them to you as a free service, as a free recruiter matchmaking service in order to get you started on your journey. Now, usually you only get 2 recruiters going through Nomadicare, but being a listener of the show, you can get 3. So this is how it's going to work. You go to nomadicare.com/Dylan. You will get set up with 3 recruiters to be on your dream team, as well as a guide to get you started on your journey.
Hey Nomad, this is Dylan, and I'll be coming at you from Thailand and Bali. But welcome to a series of blogs that have helped me along my journeys, along getting started and being a medical traveler. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dylan Callier, and thank you for joining another blogger series with me where I am reading a bunch of blogs that I've really found helpful, and some that I've read from the beginning, and I really like this one by Julia Kuhn, the Traveling Traveler, about the pros and cons of travel therapy. And I know as in the travel allied health world, we read a lot of blogs that are travel nursing specific. And most of the items out there that are talked about in these blogs, even though it says travel nursing, it's absolutely applicable to allied health, sonographers, therapists, lab techs, like all you guys. But this one is directed towards travel therapy, but a lot of this also goes towards travel nursing as well. So just to make sure that nobody's turned off by this, a lot of the information crosses both ways. It just depends on the blogger's niche and who they are trying to market and who they are trying to reach. So with this one is the pros and cons of travel therapy. I'm going to read the intro, and I'm actually going to skip down to the cons and start there and work my way up. And it's probably going to drive Julia nuts because everybody wants their stuff read as the way it is written. But something I do, and maybe a little bit embarrassing, I don't always read books straight through. I usually find a book. I do read a lot of nonfiction, so it's a little bit easier than my story, right? So I get my nonfiction book, and I go straight to the chapter that I want to read, that I think is the most important. And then if it's still good, I move on. So obviously this is still a good blog, but I really wanted to cover the con section or the challenges section. So we're going to do I don't like the term con because it means like negative, right? But these are the challenges. We're going to cover the challenges first, then go to the neutral, and then we'll go to the pros. And so as a travel therapy blogger, one of the most common questions I receive is, what are the pros and cons of travel therapy? While travel may seem glamorous, it is definitely not all unicorns and rainbows. It can be a hard path to take and one that takes some consideration and planning. Without further ado, here are my top pros and cons of travel. So sorry in advance, Julia, but we're going to scroll all the way down. We're going to go to the challenges. So cons: finding a job and relocating every 3 months. So picking up and finding a new job and moving every 3 months is definitely not easy. Constantly having to pack up, move, find housing, and unpack can be stressful. The packing is the worst. Packing is always the worst. Just when you feel you're settled in a place, it's time to go. Constantly being on the search for a new job can be tiresome. Sometimes you just want to know that you have work. Finding temporary housing is also a huge struggle. This is where my personal really big stressor is always finding housing. While the internet may have made things more accessible and easier to find, examples are Airbnb, Craigslist, etc., it has also opened the door for higher priced apartments and scammers to try and take your money. The next challenge is being in undesirable buildings or locations. Travelers are used in locations and buildings that have staffing shortages. That might be because of the geographic area has a hard time attracting clinicians. a buildings that is poorly run, or maybe because there are ethical conflicts with managers and staff. The areas that need travelers may be very rural or in cities that may have issues with crime. So it all depends on where you're going. There's a need, there's a reason they need a traveler, and it's important to figure that out on the interview. Maybe it's in the middle of Ohio, maybe it's in the middle of Missouri, and that's why. Or maybe it's just bad management, maybe it's a sinking ship. High productivity demands for the next challenge. Along with being in a building that may not be managed well, many travelers have to deal with high productivity and caseload standards. Some facilities will pile work on travelers and demand impossible expectations. Depending on the terms of your contract, a facility may be able to terminate you without notice if you're not meeting those expectations. And for those that are fans of the show, you know that we always want a 30-day guarantee in those contracts to avoid that. The uncertainty of work is the next challenge. You are not guaranteed work. Travelers fill temporary assignments. The number one goal a facility generally has with a traveler is to replace them with permanent staff. If a permanent person is hired while you're working on your contract, you may get canceled with short notice. When your contract is complete, you are essentially unemployed and have to search for work again. There is no guarantee that there will be work where or when you need it. This all comes back to the market, and this post is definitely for more of those just about to jump in. And so these are all good challenges. And of course, I want to start with the challenges, and then we're going to end strong with those those really good benefits that we all are excited about. But there's no guarantee in it. If the market is down for your profession, it's going to be harder, and you have to be more flexible in order to get the jobs that you want, or just in order to get the jobs and to make sure that you can have this benefit of traveling to new places and having these experiences. But if the market's really good, you can play to that and find cities that maybe, you know, when the market's down, it's not going to be as easy to find a job there. You know, I'm thinking of states like Hawaii and Alaska, depending. Texas and California usually have lots of jobs all around for all professions, but it might not be in the city that you want. It might be somewhere kind of central in the desert, somewhere like that during the summer that you need to take if you're needing to be more flexible because of the market. The next challenge, contract canceling. A contract can be canceled with a 14 or 30-day notice. In some contracts, they can even be canceled before they begin with no penalty. That creates more uncertainty of work. And so as a traveler and working with your recruiter, you can have a lot of input and power in that situation to where you're able to say, oh, you know what, actually, I didn't see a guarantee in there. I'm going to need a guarantee if I'm going to drive all the way across the US to work for these guys, because I don't want to get there, work 2 days, and then all of a sudden you don't have a job. But I always go for the 30-day notice, because if you're canceled and you don't have a place to live, or the contract of where you're living, you just signed for, you know, a 30-day cancellation notice for where you're living, and you don't have a 30-day cancellation notice for where you're working, the work can cancel on you, and then you end up having to pay extra time for that place that you're living that maybe you won't be at. Maybe you might be already on your way to the next contract. And so that's one of the common mistakes that people end up losing money, is making sure that the 30-day guarantee notice for their housing doesn't match the 30-day guarantee notice for if the job's going to cancel on them. It's a two-way street. So if you're going to cancel on that job, you have to let them know ahead of time. Next challenge, being away from home. As a traveler, you may be 2,000 plus miles away from home. You may, and I'm gonna go ahead and cross the may out. You will miss family events, holidays, and special gatherings. It can be lonely, and you will miss your family, and you will miss your friends. There's a lot of professional and personal challenges that go into this traveling thing. I've done it on the big why of traveling. Kind of got a little bit more emotional than some of these podcasts on there about being away from my nephews and about being away from my grandmother and how hard that is. And it's just one of the personal challenges that come with being a traveler. And for the final challenge, the unknown. As a traveler, anything can happen. You don't have job security past a 2-week span of time. Therefore, it can be a mystery where you're going to be in a month, in a year, or 2 years. You will have to go into a new building in a new city every few months to make it work. Travelers have to be okay with dealing with the unknowns in order to succeed in travel. The unknown and being a relaxed type A personality, there are many type A personalities that travel. And the reason that we are able to do that and not know where we're going to be in a month or two is because it will be 100% our choice of where we go. If you get a job and you take that job, it's 100% for you to accept it. You're not getting pushed on it. You might have to be more flexible. It might not be in the area you want to go. It might not necessarily be the setting that you want to work in, but you ultimately get to choose. So you are in full control of where this journey goes and where this journey takes you. And so that is, even though it's the unknown, and getting into this, again, this is for those that are kind of just jumping in or getting ready to jump in the travel journey. Something's going to go wrong. Something is going to pop up that you weren't expecting, whether it be contracts, whether it be when you get there, something's going to happen. And you just have to accept that. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to know everything. You shouldn't know everything going into this. This is a lot of information. You should just know enough to keep yourself safe, to make sure you're not going to end up in a bad clinic, to make sure that you have a healthy relationship with your recruiter and that you have qualified for your tax-free money, tax homes, if you've seen that blog post in the previous episodes. And something is going to go wrong. Something is going to happen that you weren't expecting, and it's going to be fine. My big one was insurance. When I got started, I made the mistake of misreading when my insurance started. I thought it started the first of that next month when I was with that company, and that was false. It was actually 30 days after the first of the month that I worked for them. So I went almost 2 months without insurance. And so I ended up having to go back on COBRA, which is a retroactive insurance that all employers have to give you the option of providing. And I took the COBRA option. I had to go back because I made an oopsie, and it ended up costing me $1,400 within 2 months for medical insurance, just in case something happened. And then I was finally able to get back on the insurance. So that is an example of something that happened that I wasn't expecting, that even though I was doing all this research, I still messed it up. And it's fine. You know, I'm out that $1,400. It's it was a big mistake, but I'm still coming out ahead. It's still fine. I breathed it off. You know, I was expecting something to happen. You just have to know something's going to happen when you go in, and that it's going to be fine. You're going to be totally fine moving forward. And that being said, let's get to the fun parts. We're going to go to the neutral, the neutral parts of traveling, and then we're going to end with the pros. So, neutral. Not a benefit, not a challenge, just kind of there. Money. Whether money is a pro or con really depends on your personal situation. For new grads, again, this is a therapy specific blog, the rates offered by travel therapy may be considerably higher for you. Conversely, for more experienced clinicians, the pay rates may be a pay cut. If you live in an area that is saturated with therapists, you may find that you are constantly being given low rates, regardless of your experience. In areas that are desperate for clinicians, you may do better financially as a permanent employee than as a traveler in another town. For those who have high mortgages to pay at home while you're traveling, or if you travel to an area with a high cost of living, traveling may not be as beneficial financially. Also, if you are like me and take months off unpaid at a time, the pay may not be particularly better than a permanent role. However, if you work year-round and travel to areas with low cost of living, you may do well financially. The bottom line with money is that it may be a pro, it may be a con, and that depends heavily on your personal situation. Also depends heavily on your goals. Is your goals to travel? Is your goals to take off 2 months and travel to Thailand and Bali, which is where I'll be at right now as you're listening to this? Is your goals to be financially better? I tell people a lot of times that, especially in the travel therapy world, this isn't the best way to make money, but it is one of the better ways. And you get a lot of flexibility with it. Or do you just need something new? Do you just want to go to a new place? Do you want to go to a new setting? Do you want to try something else out because you're not quite sure where you're wanting to go next? This is a great opportunity to do that. So it also depends on your why. It depends on the personal situation, depends on the market and how you're able to kind of play in the game, depending on, the current situation of your profession. And then it depends on you. Depends on what you're wanting, what you're needing, what your goals are. Watch the Why episode. It's one of my favorites. And then we're going to get into the pros now. So for all those that are about to jump in, you're going to be so excited. Oh my gosh. All right. The pros. Flexibility to work and to take time off. By far, the biggest thing that I enjoy about being a traveler is the ability to work for 3 months and then decide to take time off or take another contract. This flexibility has given me the chance to work 9 to 10 months a year, travel the world, over 20 countries and counting, and stay connected with family across the country. I could have never explored the country and the world the way I have if I was working a full-time job in one place. And I hope in these episodes, I always think of just one person. I think of one person listening to this, and maybe it's you listening to this right now thinking, I want to travel the world. How do I do it? This is how you do it. Keep listening to the show. Keep getting excited about the pros. Be ready for a wild ride and jump in with both feet because you can handle it. The next pro, travel the country and explore new cultures. As a traveler, you get to spend months in a place that other people may save up their whole lives to visit for a week. You can check places off your bucket list and experience the country and cultures of the U.S. Whether it's exploring mountains, beaches, or national parks, you can explore the U.S. like others only dream about. Experiencing the different cultures and subcultures across the U.S. is also a benefit of travel. There are so many unique cultures to learn about. Each assignment may introduce you to people of different heritages with different food and dialects. The amount of difference between the spots in the United States still is one of my biggest surprises. From moving to Missouri to going down south to Alabama, where everybody's so very nice, so very proper in the way they talk, and they keep talking and they keep talking is much different than St. Louis, where I grew up at. And coming out to California, where there's a lot more spiritualness and carefreeness, and then you go to the East Coast and they all have their conservative views and the different food, and just there's so many different cultures just within the United States. And that's not even talking about Alaska or Hawaii or all these really special places that we have within this country. And so going to those places and getting to experience it and finding those surprising little nuances between, calling it fireflies out on the West Coast and calling it lightning bugs everywhere else. You get to experience it firsthand. It's so very cool. So very cool. The next pro is switch facilities and buildings. Changing facilities and buildings has many pros. Working in new settings and facilities can give you an opportunity to develop a more diversified skill set, work with new clinicians, learn new EMR systems, and learn new buildings. It can help you avoid the burnout that you may get from going to the same job day in and day out. By working at a place for a couple months, you can avoid the office politics and the drama that may be associated with a permanent position. Because the nomads are not about the drama. No drama mamas. No have to worry about. You get to avoid it entirely. It's actually really cool because there will be, you as you go into your contracts, you will experience it. And there will be gossip and stuff. And people try to pull you in the gossip and you say, Nah. And then you leave after 3 months if you want. Professional development is the next pro. Working with new clinicians, new buildings, and different types of patients can help to develop your professional skill set in ways that a permanent job may take years to achieve. You get the opportunity to work with different levels of care and understand the healthcare system from a broader perspective. I will say, talking to travelers, we tend to have a better general idea of insurances and kind of the business aspect. And I think it comes with the entrepreneurial spirit that once you start living this lifestyle, you start thinking of ways that you can keep it going and keep your why strong. So a lot of businesses are born out of people getting started in the travel world. And I do think bouncing between so many different places and learning the different state rules and having to take all the jurisprudence exams, you learn more and you're more savvy than a permanent person that has been working the same amount as you, whether that's 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, however long you've been in the game, however long you've been treating patients. The next pro, adventure. As a traveler, you will never know what is going to happen next. 1 month, you may be in Reno. The next month is Chicago. Life is an adventure. And as a traveler, your life is a journey. And my little caveat at the end, life is a journey and you are holding the pen and you get to write your own story. What a fantastic way to do this as a medical traveler. Make friends across the country. Every assignment is a new opportunity for friendships and relationships. Before you know it, you will have friends all around the country. Discover yourself and your independence. This is the last of the pros, and I really liked that this is the last thing that we talk about. Traveling full-time can be such a life-changing experience. You will learn more about yourself and become a much more independent person if you continue down this path. You can learn what you are capable of and achieve things that you may have never thought were possible for yourself. And as I'm on this big travel that I've been planning for 4 years, when you first have this idea, you think, oh, it's not possible. And you read about it, and then you watch videos about it, and then you listen to podcasts about it, and then you meet a person that is doing what you want to do, and all of a sudden it becomes this tangible thing that is all of a sudden just like right there for you for the taking. And with travel, you're getting outside your comfort zone. You're not, and that's when you grow. When you're in your comfort zone, you don't grow. And that's when it becomes monotonous. That's when it becomes stagnant. That's when you get burnout. When you start getting outside of your comfort zone, that's when you become really humble. When you're up on top of a mountain and you're scared of heights. My gift and curse is that I love views. I'm a sucker for a skyline, but I have such a fear of heights. And so being up there and standing and forcing myself to just feel that is so very humbling. And you grow the most when you are uncomfortable. And getting to meet more people, getting to see more places, you become more empathetic. You can relate to people more. You grow so much on this. And it's not just about professional skills. It is much, much greater than that. And for the journey that you want to have. And so now that I've kind of mishmashed this whole episode, went cons first, then neutral, then pros, here's the summary that Julia wrote. Being a traveling healthcare professional, nurse, therapist, technician, has a wide array of pros and cons. For every person, there could be different pros and cons. It is up to you to decide why you want to travel and if the pros outweigh the cons. If you have any more questions about the travel, feel free to contact Julia. Thank you so much, Julia, for writing that. And calculated risks. That is everything that I base my decisions off of. A calculated risk. Does the risk make sense for the reward? And I can tell you from traveling, yes. Yes, the risks are worth the reward. Again, goes back to the market question. Make sure it's a good market. Might not be the right time for you depending on your goals. I'm never going to tell somebody not to travel. Never going to say that, but if it's not within your goals, if you don't have the ability to be flexible, if you don't have the ability to enjoy the journey because of the situation that you're in based on the circumstances of the year at this moment, it might not be for you. But for those that have the good market, it is so very worth it. The risk is very low. If you don't like it, you just go back. How cool of a opportunity is this that we get as medical professionals? Again, where people have to quit their jobs and create this business and learn all these things and put so much risk for them and their families in order to gain the ability to travel across the country and knock off those bucket lists, rather than wait a whole year just to take a week off and go see those national parks. How cool is it that we get handed this opportunity to just go? It's very, very cool. So thank you so much, Julia, the Traveling Traveler. So if you go to thetravelingtraveler.com, you can look up the pros and cons of travel therapy. And that is where this came from. All that information will also be in the show notes. So you can check out the direct link there and go there directly for yourself. And if you have any questions for myself or for Julia, you can post them in the New Medical Nomads Facebook group. Julia's a big member there as well. If you're looking for the next official launch of these episodes, you can go to the New Medical Nomads podcast Facebook page. But if you're wanting early access, you can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you're at for your podcast, wherever you're listening to this. And thank you so much for those who are engaging. The reviews are so great to read. It makes my day so much getting those in. So the reviews, the subscriptions, the hearts, the likes, the comments, the shares, they all help with the engagement and for more people to see this information that need this, and so that this information that we're putting out, that we can make sure that it helps more and more people, which is the ultimate goal of this podcast. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for the support. And for all you nomads, have safe travels.